Now in the Philippines, we're kind of used to seeing European cars lately. There have been a lot of German cars, especially since Mercedes-Benz released their A-Class, their B-Class, their GLA, their GLC, and BMW with their like X1, X3, and 1 and 2 series. So the German cars, they've started getting rather common and slightly more affordable. But the French cars, this is something that we rarely ever see here in the Philippines. And today I'm going to show you around one. Here we have a 2020 Peugeot 5008. Today I'm going to show you around this car and I'm also going to give it a test drive, so stay tuned. Now, while the French aren't exactly known for their great engineering, they are known for their great styling together with the Italians. So up here in the hood, you have nice recess on both sides. There's also a nice line to the left and right of both of those recesses. And here in the front, you also get a nice grille with what looks like a bear to me. The Peugeot badge looks like a bear to me, but apparently it's a lion because it has a tail. Okay, Peugeot. You also get a nice Peugeot logo right here. But down here, what's odd about this car is that it has this thing right here that looks like the cover for the sensors for adaptive cruise control, but apparently this car doesn't have it. I could be wrong, but as far as I know, it doesn't have adaptive cruise control. Maybe this is just for one of those higher trim models. And this is Peugeot just keeping it there to remind you that you didn't buy the most expensive trim. All right, now as you move on over here, these lights are definitely one of the most unique lights I've ever seen on any car. You also get these things that says Peugeot Full LED technology, just to remind you that you're a tree hugger. LEDs. You're not using any of those old light bulbs anymore. Now here to the side, as you can see, this car looks pretty much just like an Innova that has been shortened height-wise and length-wise. But at least you have a really nice color. You get these nice designs down here as well. And you also get 18-inch rims as standard. This, by the way, is the Allure model, the only trim level that you can get in the Philippines. And I have to clarify that although this was sold for the 2021 model year, this is not the 2021 Peugeot 508 facelift that Peugeot released globally. Now here at the back of the Peugeot 5 Infinity 8, as the badge would say. It's a 508, but yeah, it looks like it. Now here, the car is actually very low. This is where you can really see how low the car is. Now you'll expect like an SUV to be a bit higher, but this is rather low. Do take note that the 508 was originally released as an MPV, then later on for this generation they reclassified it as like an SUV, like a crossover. Now just like the front and the sides, the 508 has a really bold design. It's a very unique design. So for example, these lights right here, they wrap around, and over here to the side there's even some lines. Now I'm not sure what they do exactly, but I guess that's just there for styling. It looks rather nice. Now these 3 repeaters right here for your tail lamps, I thought that it's going to look cool and be like your turn signals that go individually, but apparently this is the only turn signal that you get. That's kind of sad. Now moving down here in the center, it's kind of weird because like in most cars, you're going to have the handle or the button to open the tailgate right here in the middle, but Peugeot decided to be French and put it down here. Very odd. Nice chrome sill right here, and you also get these dual fake exhaust pipes. Now let's open this one up. And as you open this one up, you can see that your load storage area, it's not exactly the biggest. With the seats down, as you can see on this right side of the car, it's adequately sized. It's more similar to like an Avanza or a Rush instead of an Innova. But with the seats up, there's well, absolutely no space anymore. What's interesting about this is at least if you don't want your parcel cover over there on top, you can store it over here, so at least you have a place to store it. Now up here, finally, you have a place to put your early warning device. Now to close this one up, you just have a button here. And do note that the tailgate with the leg thing, it's in the activated position, so I really don't know why it doesn't work. Now, one thing that we wanted to show you is that this tailgate kind of like slams down like that on the last second. Most cars, it will go at the exact same speed as it would from the moment it would come down from the top. Under the hood of this nice looking, unique looking, eccentric SUV, you have this 1.6 liter twin scroll turbo gasoline engine, which produces 167 horsepower and 245 Newton meters of torque. Now I must say this engine is more than adequate for a car of this size. I expected it to be a little bit on the underpowered side, but after driving it, it's really, really good. What's interesting about this is that this hood release is very hard to find, especially with this thing right here, and the hood is really, really hot. Here inside the Peugeot 508, first let's check the thud of the door. And this is the first time I've ever heard a French car door thud, and I must say it's very good. It's very similar to like most German cars. Now let's start it up. So it's push button, fires right up like that. By the way, I want to show you the key in this car. It looks really nice. It's quite large. It's probably one of the biggest keys I've ever seen. You got a Peugeot logo at the back, and it's all like this carbon fiber material thing, but I'm sure that's fake carbon fiber. Now let's turn on the AC, and that can get quite annoying because you have to press this button and then it goes up to the screen. So if you're in a rush and you put the car into like reverse, you can't just like turn on your AC. Quite annoying, especially here in Manila where it's quite hot. So now let's just turn it up like that. There we go. Now in here, the materials are generally great. They're very similar to their German counterparts. So for example, here up top, it's all soft leather. Here too, it's soft touch leather down here as well. Although there are quite a bit of pieces of like hard touch plastic. So for example, down here, that's hard touch plastic. This is also hard touch plastic. But then it gets quite interesting because again, it is a French car. So this part right here, it's covered in this like nice cloth material, and same thing here with the door cards, just on the top part. Very interesting indeed. Now here, moving on to the steering wheel, it's a weird steering wheel. This is definitely weird. Okay, eccentric steering wheel. I think that's the best word for it. It is French after all, again. So you get flat bottom and flat top as well. Then it is quite small, especially for a car of this size. Up behind that, you have a digital instrument cluster, which looks quite good actually. It's very high resolution. You can control the different settings through this scroll wheel right here. Then finally we move on over to these. So this system right here, your 8-inch touchscreen infotainment system, it's not exactly the hardest to use, but I wouldn't call it the most intuitive as well. So I'm kind of lost right now. Yeah, I'm kind of lost. So I do suggest that you just stick with using Waze, for example, for your maps if you want to use this system. And you just better use off like Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. Anyway, it does have it. Now here, down here in the middle, there's so much cubbies in this car. So you got a big cubby over here, another cubby over here, 2 more cup holders in here. And here at the door bins as well, they're really big. Then when you finally open this up, this is hands down the most French thing about this car. So this center cubby is so huge, and there's even a cutout for a bottle of wine. That's just so damn French. So an entire bottle of wine can actually fit in here in the middle, and it's also cool. Then up top you get a panoramic sunroof, which is really big, and this is coated with like tint. I believe the owner used like V-Cool tint because it could get quite steamy in the summer given these panoramic sunroofs. Now one thing to note is that if you're a bit tall, this car can be a little bit short on headroom. I'm only 5'6", and I'm already having a not so great time with headroom because of this panoramic sunroof. So if you do get this car without the sunroof, at least, well, you can't get it in the Philippines, but elsewhere in the world, you will have a little bit more headroom. One last quirk right here is this one right here. You know how in most cars your sunglass holder is here in the middle, but for this one, it's over here at the side. So you can put your sunglasses there. However, it's a bit too small, so you can't even put your sunglasses. So the owner just ended up putting some pens in there, which is quite interesting indeed. Now the seats, they're really nice seats. I love the contours on both sides. They remind me of like Mazda CX-5 seats. But what's weird about this is that, take a look at the shape over here. So it's like a horn shape. So you got 2 horns at the side, you get the head, and it's recessed here. Quite weird. It's power adjustable on both sides, but you don't get the memory seats. Shifter in this car, so it's similar to like what BMW uses, at least a system, but it's in this weird looking shape that looks like your conventional handbrake. So this is your electronic parking brake, but you have your shifter, which looks like what was supposed to be the handbrake. So just like BMW, it's like unlock, down, neutral, reverse. And by the way, you get this reverse camera that's also 180 degrees, and you also get a top-down view, which is really nice. Park, and just behind that, you get this hill descent control and all of your drive modes for whenever you're going to take this car off-road, which I'm sure you won't, but should you want to, you have that right there. You also get a sport mode button, by the way. Here at the back of the 508, first let's check the thread of the door. And strangely, the back doors don't sound as good as the front, which in most cars, the back sounds better, but for this one, it's quite different. Now back here, legroom is definitely great. You get these nice recessed seats, and the seat at the back also reclines as you want it to. You can also slide the seat forward and backward for the third row, so it really slides all the way forward, which is really nice. Headroom here at the back, it's quite similar to the front, so it can get quite limited, especially with this panoramic sunroof. What's quite interesting here at the back, though, is that you get your own air vents, right? And below that, you get your fan speed controls. But what's odd about it is that in the front, you don't get physical buttons, but here at the back, Peugeot finally gave you those physical buttons that we definitely want at the front instead. Quite weird. You also get this USB port right here, which is covered. And it blends in really well, so that's a really nice design thing. Now open this one up, and this is your only toy back here. So this armrest is nice and wide. It's also nicely padded as well. You get a place to put probably your phone here or your small tablet, and open this one up. And this is one of the most high quality feeling second row seats cup holders I've ever felt in any car. Now here at the middle, this is probably also one of the best cars to seat 3 people abreast in, because the car is just so wide, your floor is completely flat. But what's interesting again about these floors, aside from being completely flat, if you open this one up on both sides, you get this small cubby for where you can put like a gun, maybe a submachine gun, or maybe another bottle of wine if that one bottle of wine in the front is just not enough. Here at the third row, remember this is a 7-seater SUV. Legroom is surprisingly great. So now this second row seat is set to its like middle position, middle slide position. If you push this all the way forward, you get tons of legroom here if you're like 5'8" and below. But if you then push this one just to the halfway mark, then you're gonna be totally fine as long as you're probably like 5'6" and below, just like me. Now the seats, the only complaint I have is it is a bit low, so your thighs do go up a bit, but at least, you know, headroom here is actually better than the second row, which is quite odd. You can also raise your headrest right here, so you shouldn't be scared about whiplash injuries. For longer journeys, I can say that this car is no problem at all. So driving the 2020 Peugeot 5008, or well, 5 Infinity 8. Materials in this car, it feels really nice as you drive this. The seats are incredibly comfortable. There's plenty of adjustments, including lumbar support, which is definitely a must for me because of all the back pains I have, because I have the back of like a 70-year-old right here, even though I'm only like 23. Anyway, this car in town, it's really comfortable to drive. The steering wheel, although it is a bit odd, the shape especially because of that flat top and flat bottom, and the size, it is very small. It's probably one of the smallest steering wheels I've ever held. It's still relatively okay. It's really light, turning along tight corners and tight streets. That is definitely no problem at all. You can even probably turn this with your pinky. It's that assisted. But of course, there is drawbacks to that. So for one, since it is electronic power steering, e-pass as they call it, there is absolutely no feedback. I don't know where the front tires are pointing. So even if I like turn like that, I just don't know where it is. Thank God, the body roll, though it's not the worst in this car, it is still more or less what you expect from an SUV of its class. But since it is a bit lower than most of its competitors, it is not that bad when it comes to the body roll. Now, throttle response in this car, it's okay. It's not that responsive, but it isn't laggy either. Put this car into sport mode and you just tap the throttle and it really goes. Now, this car comes with the 1.6 liter twin scroll turbo, which means that turbo lag is less noticeable. There is still that small turbo lag right there, but at least it's a more linear feeling thing. Put this car into sport mode, and although you only have that 160 plus horsepower engine, and it goes. The exhaust note for an inline-4 engine is actually not bad, and the brakes are pretty good too. The brakes, they're quite similar to most European car brakes, so there's a bit of travel. It feels like air before it actually bites, which makes it a lot smoother than a lot of Japanese cars, wherein like you just step on it a bit and it jerks like that. So I really love the brakes on this car as well as the acceleration. Just listen to that exhaust note. That's really nice for an inline-4. I approve of this engine very much. The transmission in this car, I'm not sure if it is a dual clutch. However, what I noticed is that if you're at an incline, then like you're at an incline uphill, it tends to roll just slightly bit. So you just have to be a bit careful with that. You have an electronic parking brake, with the supposedly hill descent control and all that thing, but it still tends to roll, which is quite annoying, so that's just something to look out for. This car has like a lot of assist when you go on the highway. So for example, it has lane keep assist. However, it will not keep you in the center of the lane. It'll only bounce you back and forth between the two lanes. This one also supposedly has that thing that warns you if your driving habits start to change and it seems like you're nodding off the wheel. So that's really an interesting thing that Peugeot put on. Over like bad roads, speed bumps, potholes, this car handles surprisingly well. It handles itself really well. So even if you get like 18-inch rims, it's not jarring at all. It's pretty much just like comfort-wise, I could compare it to something like a Honda Accord, that level of comfort. It's no Camry, it's not extremely wallowy, it's not the magic carpet ride, it's no S-Class, definitely so. But for an SUV and for a tall car like this and for a chunky car like this, it's actually not bad. Visibility in this car is really great. So your A-pillars, while they're a bit on the bigger side, you can easily like turn your head like this because the windows are nice and big. The sides too, they're really good. The B-pillars. However, the back window, the rear window, it is quite small, but they found a way to like design this rear view mirror in such a way that you're gonna see a lot out of it. In terms of feel, if there's one car I can most compare this to, I think it would be the Geely cars. Now, I've driven the Geely Coolray and I've also sat in the Okavonga? Yeah, that Oka something car. And it's a very similar feel into it. So the comfort, the noise insulation, the materials in the car overall, it feels quite similar. And although that is a Chinese car, don't dismiss that to be a trash car because that is really a good car. So that feeling similar to this is definitely a big compliment to this car as well. Comparing this car to a lot of German cars, I wouldn't say that it is at par with them. It's only slightly lower, but it's not something that you should be ashamed of because this car is not supposed to directly compete with those cars in any way. This car is priced at around 2.19 million pesos new. And you can't get the same class in a German car for that price. You just can't. You have to go at least 1.5 to 2 times more. So I believe that this car, for its price, it is quite justified.
If you like this video, please don't forget to smash the like button for the YouTube algorithm. And also don't forget to subscribe to my channel to see more car reviews.